Long ago, there was a band of fearless Vikings whose hearts burned with an insatiable thirst for adventure and discovery. In their frozen lands, ancient prophecies of a golden kingdom hidden beyond the icy seas were not mere tales, but a call of destiny, beckoning them to greatness. Imagine the preparations for this momentous expedition: ships fortified with solid oak, weapons sharpened to a gleam as if promises themselves, and hearts pounding with anticipation of the unknown. This was more than just a voyage. It was a quest for something grander, something that would forever etch their names into the annals of history. They embarked not for riches, but for glory, so their deeds would be remembered by generations to come. As their long ship cut through the ocean waves, the stark beauty of endless, soul-chilling horizons unfolded before them. Arctic winds howled like living beings, testing the spirit of every warrior. But the true challenge lay ahead, when the ocean, which had seemed so calm and reliable, revealed its hidden secrets. From the depths emerged sea monsters, previously known only through the sagas of skalds. These creatures were astonishing in their size, their eyes like burning coals piercing the Viking souls. With each stroke of the oar, a whisper could be heard of something watching, something waiting. And as if that weren't enough, the wind began to carry voices, not human, but spectral, echoing ancient legends of betrayal and power. These whispers weren't just frightening, they seemed to hold the keys to the right path, but who would dare listen to them and unravel their mysteries? For every answer gained, a price would have to be paid. It was at this moment, facing the unpredictable, that the Vikings realized their journey was not only a battle against monsters and the elements, but also a struggle against their own fears and ambitions. North of the known lands, where icy winds seared faces like blades and impenetrable mountains held ancient secrets, lay the village of Skaldvik. A small yet thriving settlement nestled on the shore of a deep fjord, it was protected by mountains whose peaks seemed to touch the sky. The inhabitants of this village differed from other northern peoples. They relied not only on the strength of their hands and the sharpness of their weapons, but also on the stories they told. Skaldvik was a place where oral tradition was sacred, and every family was bound to preserve the memory of their ancestors in sagas, poems, and songs. It was a community where the forge crafted not only weapons, but also symbols of faith and strength, such as amulets adorned with ancient runes. Children grew up listening to tales of heroes who dared dangerous sea voyages and battled legendary monsters, and for them, the impossible was merely a challenge worthy of a Viking. Elders, known as the Keepers of Words, gathered the village on the darkest winter nights to recite prophecies and legends that resonated in the hearts of the young. On these nights, their eyes shone at the sound of verses about promised lands where gold gleamed brighter than the sun, and winds brought untold riches. It was in this environment that Osmund was born, forged between the steel of swords and the flame of stories. From an early age, Osmund displayed extraordinary qualities. While other boys frolicked on icy beaches or practiced with axes and shields, he spent hours listening intently to the Keepers of Words. His mother, Estrid, was a healer skilled in the secrets of potions and runes, and his father, Bjorn, was a renowned blacksmith. It was said that weapons forged by Bjorn never broke in battle, and many believed it was a blessing from Thor himself. Osmund inherited something unique from his parents: the strength of a warrior and the sharp mind of a strategist. Even at a young age, he showed innate leadership qualities, capable of uniting people in difficult times. In his teenage years, Osmund faced his first significant loss. A harsh winter brought an epidemic to the village, claiming the lives of his father and several other esteemed warriors. Bjorn's death marked the beginning of a new phase in Osmund's life. He took over the forge, mastering the art of transforming metal into weapons that combined strength and beauty. One cold night, while sorting through his father's tools, he found something that would change his destiny. A dagger with runes engraved on its blade and a mysterious message speaking of the promised land. This artifact became the spark that ignited his resolve for years to come. Over time, Osmund became a respected figure in Skaldvik, known for his bravery and compassion for the weak. He led expeditions to explore surrounding lands, acquiring resources essential for the village's survival during harsh winters. His strategic thinking and diplomatic skills allowed him to forge strong alliances with other northern communities. But this was not enough. Deep down, Osmund felt his destiny lay beyond his native village. He believed in the prophecies of a promised land where his people could live without fear of harsh winters and the raids that plagued the north. It was this belief that united the crew, ready to embark on a journey with him. Each member of the team was a crucial piece of this puzzle. Ragnhild, a warrior of incredible strength whose scars told tales of battle victories. Eric, a navigator who could read the map of the starry sky. And Frigg, a skald whose voice captivated even the sternest hearts. Osmund personally selected each of them not only for their skills, but also because he believed that together they could withstand any trial. On the day Skaldvik bid farewell to its heroes, a mix of triumph and sorrow hung in the air. The villagers understood that the voyage promised not only glory, but also held countless dangers. Osmund, full of resolve, cast but one glance back, vowing to return not with gold and silver, but with a new home for his people. Thus began the saga of Osmund and his crew, whose names were destined to be etched not only in the annals of the icy seas, but also in the hearts of those who believed in a brighter future for Skaldvik. The boundless ocean expanse presented a harsh ordeal, an endless labyrinth of mysteries and hopes. The Viking longship, mighty and unsinkable, sliced through the waves like a predator tracking its prey. The crew, led by Osmund, was gripped by anxiety and anticipation, tension palpable with every breath. Weeks dragged on, yet the horizon remained an unchanging line of blue and white, showing no sign of land. Osmund, as a wise leader, understood that maintaining morale was as crucial as fending off physical threats. He tirelessly spoke to his warriors about the promised land, a paradise with fertile fields, dense forests, and untold treasures. His words were like a flame, warming their hearts in the icy wilderness. The first trials were not long in coming. A furious storm crashed upon the ship, raising wall-like waves, tossing it from side to side. The roar of the wind was deafening, and icy rain, like thousands of needles, pierced their skin, forcing the sailors to fight for balance and control of the vessel. Osmund, like a rock, stood above the chaos, his commands cutting through the din like blades. "Hold the ropes, grip the helm tighter, the sea will not swallow us today." The strength of his spirit instilled confidence, and though many were nearly swept overboard, they endured the fury of the elements. When the sky cleared, the crew rejoiced, but Osmund knew this was only the beginning. The sea held even more treacherous secrets in its depths. A few days later, they encountered something truly inexplicable. The sea fell silent, and the quiet became almost ominous. Suddenly, a gigantic shadow flickered beneath the ship, making the wood tremble as if something was trying to drag it into the abyss. "Something is following us," one of the sailors whispered, his gaze fixed on the water, and then, from the depths, a monstrous creature emerged. The Kraken, as the superstitious whispered, though no one could say for certain. Enormous tentacles wrapped around the ship, filling the air with the scent of salt and decay. Osmund did not falter. He drew his sword and called his warriors to arms. "If the sea craves war, we will fight until it acknowledges our strength." The battle was fierce. Spears and axes parried tentacles that threatened to crush the vessel. After a long struggle that left many wounded and the ship damaged, the monster retreated, vanishing into the depths. The relief was immense, but the fear of the unknown lingered. Exhausted and with their ship damaged, the Vikings needed land to heal their wounds and regain their strength. Osmund's compass led them to a small island covered in dense forest. It was a humble refuge, but they had no choice. Upon landing, the crew set to work, hunting and fishing to replenish their supplies. Osmund, however, noticed something strange. There were no large animals on the island, only the rustling of wind in the treetops. That evening, as the warriors celebrated a successful hunt around the campfire, Osmund gathered them. He spoke again of the promised land, asserting that every trial was a test from the gods, a necessary step on the path to paradise. His words were inspiring, but in the eyes of many, doubt lingered. Some believed him implicitly, but others began to wonder if this journey would truly lead them to their goal, or if they would forever remain prisoners of the icy waters. The next morning, as they prepared to depart, the crew discovered strange tracks in the sand, circular patterns as if left by a gigantic, crawling creature. Osmund ordered an immediate departure. "We will not wait to find out who made these," he stated with a serious expression. Thus, they left the island, carrying with them the feeling of being watched. Osmund, however, did not lose faith. He knew this voyage was not merely a search for land, but a test of their spirit, courage, and destiny itself. Each trial only reinforced this thought, preparing them for the upcoming encounter with the world's most ancient mysteries. Ancient sages believed that the Kraken was not merely a living creature, but the embodiment of the ocean's very will, a formidable force rising from the dark depths to remind humanity that the sea element did not belong to them. In Norse mythology, it is known as Hafgufa, a monstrous colossus, master of the icy and dark waters. The mere mention of its name in old sagas was accompanied by terrifying images: gigantic tentacles capable of crushing ships like fragile reeds, and eyes as bottomless as the ocean abyss, paralyzing with a single glance. It was not just a predator, but a primordial power, guardian of maritime secrets that mortals were not meant to unravel. Osmund had listened to these legends since childhood, but he could never have imagined he would face the legend himself. The skalds of his native village sang that the Kraken appeared when the balance of the sea was disturbed, as a punishment for those who dared to intrude on forbidden territory. Some considered it a servant of Ran, the goddess of the deep sea, sent to seize the unwary and drag them into the underwater realm of the dead. Others asserted that it had no master, that it was a creature as ancient as the world itself, born from primal waters even before the gods set foot on Midgard. These legends fueled the fear and reverence of seafarers, who avoided the harsh northern seas where, rumor had it, the Kraken lurked in silence, awaiting its next victim. The attack that befell Osmund and his crew was vivid proof of the creature's ferocity. With its appearance, the very air seemed to change, filled with a salty, burning, nauseating odor. Its body, immense, dark and covered in slime, gleamed in the dim daylight, while its tentacles moved with incredible speed, snapping oars and crushing the deck. But the most terrifying was the sound it emitted, a deep, guttural howl, like the cries of lost souls echoing across the ocean. Osmund realized that the Kraken was not merely an animal, but a dark intelligence driven by something more than simple hunger. After the skirmish, while the crew hastily repaired the ship, people discussed what had happened in hushed tones. One of the elders, named Eric, recalled an ancient saga about a captain who tried to strike a deal with the Kraken, offering gold and jewels in exchange for his ship's freedom. The monster, as the legend goes, showed no interest in material wealth, but retreated upon hearing chants dedicated to the goddess Ran. Eric suggested Osmund keep this in mind for the future if they were to encounter the creature again. Though Osmund was not superstitious, he understood that in the face of such an incomprehensible force, any knowledge could become a weapon. The Kraken, though temporarily retreated, was not a vanquished foe. The crew knew this would not be their last encounter with the horrors of the sea. Osmund, with a heavy heart, felt that this creature symbolized something more than just a physical threat. It was a warning, a trial sent by an unknown power. What secrets did the Kraken hold, and why did it seem to attack only those who dared to sail into the unknown? These questions loomed over them like an ominous shadow as the ship continued its journey. After the Kraken's attack, the wind changed. The serene waters that had accompanied them at the start of their voyage gave way to a turbulent and unpredictable sea, as if the ocean itself had raged in response to the Vikings' defiance. Osmund sensed that this was just the beginning of something greater, a trial that would demand not only physical endurance, but also strength of spirit from his crew. In the following days, the sea unleashed increasingly terrifying monsters upon them. Storms erupted from nowhere, and tension among the sailors themselves grew. The hope of reaching the distant land seemed ever more elusive, and the horizon boundless and empty. The crew, despite their experience, was unprepared for what lay ahead. At night, the sound of the wind howling through the sails seemed like an ominous warning. During long watches, fear crept in unnoticed, like a thick fog clouding their minds. The scent of salt and sea permeated their drenched clothes, and provisions began to dwindle faster than anticipated. Osmund, maintaining his composure, tried to keep the crew's morale high, but he knew the men were at their breaking point. One dawn, as the ship navigated a narrow passage between razor-sharp rocks, an ominous shadow appeared in the depths. At first, it was just a slight vibration of the hull, a barely perceptible tremor, but soon the water boiled, and from the darkness emerged a colossal monster. It was a gigantic electric ray with luminescent tentacles that seemed to dance in the dim light of dawn. Its jaws, as if forged from natural iron, clacked with a deafening roar that sent shivers down their spines. With a lightning-fast movement, the creature attacked, its tentacles wrapping around the ship with incredible force. Osmund gave the order to fight, but the battle was not easy. The ray's electrical discharges made weapons flicker in the warrior's hands and caused agonizing spasms, making any attack lethally dangerous. In a desperate struggle, it seemed the ship was about to be crushed by the monster's power. However, gathering all their will and courage, the crew managed to sever one of its tentacles, forcing the ray to retreat, leaving behind only a trail of destruction. During the struggle, one of the youngest sailors, Leif, was mortally wounded, plunging everyone into grief. Osmund, always resilient, realized that his leadership was constantly being tested. Leif's death was a harsh reminder of the sea's mercilessness and that the greatest losses often come unexpectedly. But the greatest danger was yet to come, and Osmund felt it as an ominous premonition. Over the next few days, like a capricious maiden, the weather unleashed all its unpredictability upon the seafarers, and winds tormented the ship with such fury that the mainmast seemed on the verge of succumbing to the elements' onslaught. However, the true danger lay not in nature's tempest, but in the ominous feeling that something unseen yet palpable relentlessly followed the crew. The wind didn't just fill the sails, it whispered among the men, creating a strange murmur as if voices from ancient eras intertwined with the storm's fierce roar. The sailors were unaware that in the abyss of the ocean depths, an ancient entity was watching them intently, a progeny of the darkest depths, connected to the spirits of fallen Vikings, feeding on fear and doubt. This spirit was just one of many guarding the sacred secrets of the Promised Land, and its oppressive presence became increasingly palpable as the Vikings drew closer to their cherished goal. Within the crew, tension mounted like a tightening knot. Fear and exhaustion caused even the most loyal comrades to doubt Osmund's leadership. Whispers began to circulate about the futility of the journey, with some claiming the Promised Land was merely a mirage, a ghostly illusion created to sustain hope in people's hearts. Osmund, aware of the growing division, gathered his sailors and addressed them with a heartfelt speech. He vividly painted his vision of the land that awaited them and the grand purpose that propelled them forward. He understood that to continue the voyage, he needed to rekindle his crew's spirit. "It is not the sea that defines us," he declared, "but how we face it. Every wave, every storm is a test of our courage. It is not the Promised Land that awaits us, but our ability to overcome the impossible." His words echoed in the sailors' souls, reigniting the flame of hope in their weary hearts. However, the lurking threat transcended any challenge that could be overcome by Osmund's leadership alone. As night fell, dense darkness engulfed the sea, and the first signs of land proximity began to appear. But what seemed like a glimmer of salvation soon turned into a new trial. A thick fog, like a cloak of shadows, enveloped the ship. From the utter darkness, vague humanoid figures began to emerge, hovering above the waves with pale and lifeless faces. These were the spirits of ancient Vikings, those who had met their doom in the treacherous waters, returned in search of souls to join them in the afterlife. Osmund understood that these spirits were not enemies to be crushed, but trials to be overcome. They had appeared to test the crew's courage, to verify the strength of their faith in what they were doing. In a surge of bravery, Osmund raised his sword towards the spirits. "I challenge you," he proclaimed. His voice, like a tolling bell, pierced the fog, filled with unearthly power. "What is stronger, fear or faith?" The answer came not in words, but in a blinding flash of light that illuminated the night sky. The fog began to dissipate, revealing the path forward, where in the distance the Promised Land was visible. An island with mountains soaring to the heavens and forests seemingly pulsating with life. The journey was drawing to a close, but a new one was beginning. The Promised Land beckoned, but what awaited them in this uncharted territory, where ancient legends intertwined with unsolved mysteries, remained to be seen. As the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, revealing a breathtaking landscape, Osmund and his crew stood in silent awe. They had reached the Promised Land, the island foretold in ancient prophecies, for which they had made such sacrifices. The waters were calm, as if the sea itself, sated with trials, had acknowledged the completion of their journey. The wind gently caressed the sails, and the fog that had once pursued them seemed to dissolve in the rising sun's rays. The island was striking in its wild and untouched beauty. Snow-capped mountains rose majestically, like guardians protecting the gates to the unknown. Lush vegetation seemed to whisper tales of ancient times when gods walked the earth. The air was fresh and clean, filled with the scent of pines and damp earth. But most of all, Osmund and his men were struck by the sense of power emanating from every inch of the island, as if the very soil was imbued with the magic of ancient ages. As the ship touched the dark, sandy beach, the crew erupted in shouts of jubilation and relief. Tears streamed down their faces, weathered by sea salt. The burden of weeks of storms, monsters, and doubts began to dissipate. They had conquered the impossible. Osmund, though moved, maintained a solemn demeanor, gazing at the boundless unknown stretching before him. He knew the greatest trial was yet to come, but this moment was worth every sacrifice, every battle, every loss. The sailors disembarked, their feet touching land for the first time, and with renewed enthusiasm began to explore the island. What they discovered surpassed all their expectations. Traces of an ancient civilization were visible everywhere, but not just any civilization. Deep within the island, they found ruins, stones covered with mysterious runes that seemed to pulsate with an almost tangible energy. These stones, scattered along the coast and in the forests, were part of a power network connecting the island to other, unknown lands. Osmund, displaying his wisdom, understood that this island was not just a refuge, but the center of a vast world where ancient mysteries were still buried in time. Osmund's companions, driven by a common purpose, erected a modest settlement in their new location. Rough but sturdy wooden huts and a small fort became a stronghold against the unpredictable elements and potential threats hidden within the unexplored island. The arduous labor, nevertheless, was rewarded with a deep sense of satisfaction, and the warmth of the newly formed community breathed new life into every settler. Overcoming fatigue and past disappointments, the people worked with unprecedented enthusiasm, sensing that this land would become the cradle of something extraordinary. Structures took clear shape, and where only wilderness once stretched, a small but thriving village was now being born. At the center of this settlement, Osmund lit a huge bonfire, around which his people gathered to mark this momentous occasion. The tension that had nearly fractured the crew gave way to a strong sense of camaraderie and brotherhood. Everyone realized that they had achieved something far greater than they could have imagined. They hadn't just found a legend, they were forging a new history that would live on in the memory of generations. In the flickering firelight, Osmund addressed his people. Here, in this place, we begin a new chapter. The Promised Land is not an end, but merely a beginning. Here, together, we will forge our destiny. Our journey does not conclude with arrival, it merely changes direction. His eyes reflected the wisdom accumulated during long days at sea and every battle overcome. Now we must respect the gifts of this island, but also remember the mysteries it holds. We must protect what we find and learn from the secrets it conceals. Our destiny, as keepers of the frozen sea, begins right now. His words inspired the people, who had recently been exhausted by the journey, filling their hearts with hope and faith in the future. The Promised Land turned out to be not just a land of abundance, but fertile ground for new accomplishments, new stories, and a new home for the Viking people that Osmund and his crew were creating. Unbeknownst to them, they were laying the foundations of a new civilization. In the following days, the settlers continued to explore the island, discovering sources of pristine water, rivers winding gracefully through the hills, and fertile lands suitable for agriculture. Game was abundant in these parts, and the wild animals seemed different from those inhabiting the northern lands. A peculiar energy permeated the air, a feeling that the island lived its own life, pulsating to the rhythm of ancient prophecies. In the evenings, after the establishment of the first colony, boisterous feasts were held around the campfires. Skalds composed new sagas, celebrating the crew's courage and their triumph over the sea. Osmund, filled with gratitude and pride, sought solitude for contemplation. He understood that his mission was not yet complete. He was the chosen one, guided by ancient wisdom, but now he had also become the guardian of something far greater, the connection between the world of men and the ancient forces inhabiting this island. Nevertheless, a sense of unease lingered. Despite the richness and generosity of this land, he knew that not all of the island's mysteries had been revealed. The sea, with its terrifying creatures and powerful spirits, continued to watch them, and what lay hidden in the island's depths might prove to be beyond human comprehension. But for now, he and his crew were safe, celebrating their achievements, rejoicing in their new home and rekindled hope. The story of the keepers of the frozen sea was drawing to a close, but their journey was far from over. The promised land had been found, and the destiny of Osmund and his crew was now inextricably linked with the eternal power of the waters, mythical creatures, and the secrets hidden at the very heart of this world.